In 2008, Garmin was untouchable. They were doing $3.5 billion in sales, 70% of that coming from their in-car navigation devices. And then, seemingly overnight, their entire business model collapsed. In this video, I want to share with you the story of how they faced certain extinction, but somehow managed to pull off one of the greatest and most satisfying comebacks in business history. We'll also touch on what I believe to be the main insight for us as leaders navigating a new world. So let's backtrack for a bit. In 1989, you have two friends who get together, Gary Burrell and Min Kao. They want to start a company together, so they put their heads together, but they also put their names together. So Gary and Min start a company called Garmin. And initially, they sell GPS devices for small boats and planes. But by 1998, they released their very first in-car navigation device called the Street Pilot. Now, one of the most important things if you are going to succeed in business is that you have to time the market well. And I think Garmin did this perfectly. The market was ripe for GPS technology. So a few things go in their favor. For example, in the year 2000, President Bill Clinton orders the military to stop scrambling civilian GPS signals. And so as a result, all of the devices they have in the market receive a massive boost in accuracy, and this just really opens up the market for them. So in the year 2000, Garmin IPOs, they do $345 million in revenue. By 2008, they do $3.5 billion in revenue. And as I said earlier, 70% of that revenue comes from in-car navigation devices. Now, if you spoke to anyone inside of Garmin at that point in time, they would have told you that the future looks bright and the future looks certain. And that's always what it looks like just before everything changes. And everything was about to change. So the year prior to that, in 2007, you have this guy step onto a stage. His name is Steve Jobs, and he pulls out of his pocket a revolution, the iPhone. When you marry that with what Google announces the next year, Google Maps, all of a sudden you have Garmin watching their entire business model being given away for free. Because why would you spend hundreds of dollars on a physical device when you already have a phone and you can just download the app for free? So immediately analysts start writing Garmin off, their stock price goes crashing. And of course, Garmin has a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to this. And so they decide that they're going to launch a competitor phone called the Nuvi phone. And if you haven't heard of it, there's a very good reason for it. It was an utter disaster because somehow Garmin thought that the best response to Apple revolutionizing the mobile phone industry is to compete with a mobile phone, which just wasn't their strength. And so they launched this thing into the market, but the only thing that really happens is they keep watching their stock price going down and down and down. And this was a pivotal moment for them because this is where companies die. Every single day we are faced with a question, and that question is, will you evolve or will you expire? And you answer this question by how you respond to change. And so instead of a messy knee-jerk reaction, they kind of slowed down a bit and they started thinking a bit more carefully about how they are going to respond to change. And they decided to invest more into research and development instead of cutting costs. They decided to explore new territories instead of defending existing ones. And so what they found was that their strength was always GPS technology, and they realized that this could be applied in many different ways. And in fact, a few years earlier, in 2003, there was a group of runners inside the company that was wondering, can we use this GPS technology to help track our workouts? And so they launched what was known as the Forerunner 101. This was the first GPS-powered fitness tracker. So they find some initial success in this outdoor and fitness tracking segment. By 2015, they are doing $1 billion in sales. By 2018, they are back to their 2008 glory days. They do $3.5 billion in sales, but this time with a very different revenue mix. So you'll remember before, they did about 70% of that revenue from their in-car navigation devices. By 2018, this accounts for about 30%. And as of 2025, the automotive segment for Garmin does about 10 to 11%. They are mostly carried by the outdoor and fitness tracking segment. This accounts for about 60% of their revenue. The biggest aha moment for me was that Garmin transformed from a company that is known for the thing that goes onto your windscreen to the thing that goes onto your wrist. Garmin's comeback wasn't about the innovation. It was actually about overcoming what I call the defensive trap. When disruption hits, most leaders try to save what made them successful. So they fight harder, they spend more money to try and make their old products relevant in a new world. And Garmin also fell into this trap. But their breakthrough came when they stopped defending the existing empire and explored new territories. This shift from protective to exploratory changed everything. Most companies and leaders fail because they can't let go of what made them successful. It's just too tied to their identity. It's just too tied to the status, to the ego. Garmin survived because they learned one of the most important lessons in leadership when times are changing. Sometimes you have to stop fighting for your past if you want to create a new future.